Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the bustling theater, a tapestry of anticipation unfurled as the inaugural rehearsal commenced. Back in the shadows, Asher was a bundle of nerves, his eyes darting across the vibrant sea of actors buzzing like fireflies. He felt a sense of dissonance in his simple blue attire amid the glitter and glamour of his peers. "Attention, everyone! Places!" The director's command cracked like a whip. With a stomach swirling with butterflies, Asher advanced onto the illuminated stage. His script, soon to be a blueprint for his metamorphosis, was clutched with such force his knuckles whitened. This production was unconventional, to say the least. Asher, a man in the bloom of youth, poised to embody the complexities of the female psyche. "Let's take it from the top of Act 1, the director instructed. "Asher, whenever you're ready." Asher nodded and began reciting his lines in a shaky falsetto. He minced across the stage in an awkward approximation of feminine movement. "Cut!" the director called out after just a few moments. He pinched the bridge of his nose. "Asher, you need to embody the character. Right now you look like a lumberjack in drag. We need grace, fluidity." Asher's cheeks burned with embarrassment. "I'm trying, I swear. It's just not very natural for me." The director sighed. "Well, you'd better figure it out fast. Opening night is in 6 weeks, and ticket sales are already through the roof. Maybe try watching some videos online for inspiration?" Asher nodded glumly and shuffled off stage as rehearsal continued. He felt completely out of his depth. How was he supposed to convincingly play a woman when he could barely walk in heels without tripping over his own feet? That evening, Asher scoured YouTube for tutorials on feminine mannerisms and movement. He practiced swaying his hips in front of the mirror, but only succeeded in looking like he had a back injury. Frustrated, he flopped onto his bed and buried his face in his hands. There had to be a better way. A light bulb went off. What he needed was hands-on instruction from an expert. But where would he find someone to teach him? After some frantic Googling, Asher discovered there was a popular drag club just a few blocks from the theater. He grabbed his coat and headed out into the night, determined to find help. The club was packed when Asher arrived, pulsing with music and laughter. He felt woefully underdressed in his jeans and blue button-down as he navigated through the crowd of sequins and feathers. At the bar, he flagged down the bartender. "Excuse me, I'm looking for someone who might be able to give me some, femininity lessons for a theater role," he added hastily. The bartender raised an eyebrow. "You'll want to talk to Aurora Borealis. She's the queen bee around here." He jerked his thumb towards the stage. "Should be on next." Asher turned to watch as a statuesque blonde in a shimmering gold gown sashayed on stage. Her movements were the epitome of grace and poise as she lip-synced to a power ballad. Asher's jaw dropped. This was exactly what he needed to learn. When Aurora's number ended, Asher worked up the courage to approach her at the bar. Excuse me? Aurora?" She turned, towering over him in 6-inch heels. "Yes, darling?" Asher swallowed hard. "I was hoping I could ask for your help. I'm an actor and I need to learn how to move more femininely for a role. The bartender said you're the best." Aurora's eyes sparkled with interest. "Well now, that does sound intriguing. Tell me more." Asher explained his predicament, growing more animated as he spoke. Aurora listened attentively, nodding along. "I'd be delighted to help, sweetie," she said when he finished. Lord knows the world needs more men in touch with their feminine side. Meet me here tomorrow afternoon and we'll get started. Asher's face lit up. Really? Thank you so much. Aurora patted his cheek. Don't thank me yet, honey. I'm going to work you harder than you've ever worked before. Now run along home and get some beauty sleep. You'll need it. The next day, Asher arrived at the club promptly at 2 p.m., shifting nervously from foot to foot as he waited outside. Aurora swept in a few minutes later, looking immaculate even in daytime drag. All right, darling, lesson 1 begins now, she announced, unlocking the club doors. Walk ahead of me to the stage. I want to see what we're working with. Asher did as instructed, hyper-aware of Aurora's critical gaze on his back. He climbed onto the stage and turned to face her. Aurora tisked. Oh, honey, we have our work cut out for us. You've got all the grace of a newborn giraffe, but don't worry, I'll have you gliding like Ginger Rogers in no time. For the next several hours, Aurora drilled Asher relentlessly on the basics of feminine movement. She taught him how to lead with his hips, how to place one foot directly in front of the other when walking, how to gesture more delicately with his hands. Soften those wrists, she called out as Asher teetered across the stage in a pair of low heels. Imagine you're trailing your fingertips through water. By the end of the session, Asher was exhausted but exhilarated. He could already feel a difference in how he carried himself.
You did well today, sugar, Aurora praised. But we've only scratched the surface. Same time tomorrow?
Asher nodded eagerly. I'll be here. Over the next few weeks, Asher threw himself into his lessons with Aurora. She was a demanding teacher, but her methods got results. Soon he was gliding across the stage in 4-inch heels like he'd been born in them. Now for the fun part, Aurora announced one afternoon, wheeling out a rack of glamorous gowns. Time to get you into some proper lady clothes. Asher eyed the sparkly dresses warily. Are you sure about this? Absolutely, darling. You can't truly embody femininity until you feel it inside and out. She plucked a slinky red number from the rack. Let's start with this one. After some awkward fumbling, Asher emerged from the dressing room in the red gown. He felt ridiculous and exposed. Aurora clapped her hands in delight. Oh, brava! You look stunning! Now strut your stuff, girl! Hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence, Asher began to move. The swish of the fabric against his legs, the gentle sway of his hips, it all felt strangely natural. For the first time, he truly felt like he was inhabiting his character. That's it! Work it! Aurora cheered. You're a natural, honey! As the weeks flew by, Asher's transformation continued both on and off stage. He found himself incorporating little feminine flourishes into his everyday movements without even thinking about it. His castmates remarked on his newfound grace and poise during rehearsals. The night before opening night, Asher met Aurora for one final session. She helped him into an elaborate sequined gown and styled his blonde wig into an elegant updo. There, she said, stepping back to admire her handiwork. You're ready. Asher gazed at his reflection in awe. The person staring back at him was simultaneously familiar and foreign. He looked beautiful. I don't know how to thank you, he said, voice thick with emotion. Aurora squeezed his shoulder. Just go out there and shine, darling. Make me proud. Opening night arrived in a whirlwind of excitement and nerves. As Asher waited in the wings for his cue, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He could do this. Aurora had taught him well. The moment he stepped on stage, something magical happened. All his nerves melted away as he seamlessly slipped into character. He delivered his lines with confidence, his movements fluid and graceful. The audience was captivated. During intermission, the director pulled Asher aside, beaming. "I don't know what you did, but keep doing it. You're absolutely mesmerizing out there." The rest of the performance flew by in a blur. When Asher took his final bow, the theater erupted in thunderous applause. As roses rained down on the stage, he caught sight of a familiar face in the front row. Aurora winked at him, blowing a kiss. In the weeks that followed, rave reviews poured in. Critics praised Asher's nuanced, captivating performance. There was even talk of Tony nominations. But more importantly, the experience had profoundly changed Asher. He felt more comfortable in his own skin than ever before, more in touch with all facets of himself. Aurora's lessons had unlocked something deep inside him that he never knew existed. One evening after a performance, Asher invited Aurora out for a celebratory drink. They clinked glasses in a quiet corner of the theater bar. "To my fairy godmother," Asher toasted. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." Aurora smiled warmly. "Oh, honey, it was all you. I just helped you find what was already there." Asher considered this. "You know, when I first started this whole process, I was terrified. I thought I had to completely change who I was to play this role convincingly. But now I realize it wasn't about changing. It was about expanding, embracing new parts of myself." "That's the beauty of drag, darling," Aurora said. "It's not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more fully yourself." Asher nodded thoughtfully. "I think I understand that now, and I don't want to lose touch with this part of me, even after the show ends." Aurora's eyes twinkled. "Well then, perhaps it's time for the student to become the teacher. The club could always use fresh talent for amateur night." Asher's eyes widened. "Me? Perform in drag? Why not? You've certainly got the skills now, and something tells me you might just love it." Asher bit his lip, considering. The idea both thrilled and terrified him. But hadn't this whole journey been about pushing his boundaries?
"You know what? I think I'd like to give it a try,"
he said. Aurora beamed. "That's my girl. Now, let's talk names. I'm thinking Celeste Lumiere." As they laughed and brainstormed drag personas, Asher felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him. What had started as a simple acting exercise had blossomed into a transformative journey of self-discovery. He didn't know exactly where this new path might lead, but he was excited to find out. In the months that followed, Asher continued to push himself both on and off stage. His theater career flourished as he tackled increasingly challenging roles, bringing depth and nuance to every character he portrayed. But it was his burgeoning drag career as Celeste that truly allowed him to explore the furthest reaches of his artistic expression. Under Aurora's continued mentorship, Asher honed his skills in makeup application, wig styling, and costume design. He discovered a passion for the art of visual transformation, spending hours experimenting with different looks in front of his mirror at home. His debut performance as Celeste at the club's amateur night was a roaring success. As he lip-synced and danced to a medley of power ballads, Asher felt a rush of exhilaration unlike anything he'd experienced before. The line between performance and reality blurred as he lost himself in Celeste's confident, glamorous persona. After the show, Aurora enveloped him in a sequin-covered hug. "I always knew you had it in you, darling. You were born for this." Asher grinned, still buzzing from the adrenaline. I can't believe how amazing that felt. Like I was finally letting a part of myself shine that I didn't even know existed. As word spread about the theater star moonlighting as a fierce drag queen, Celeste's popularity skyrocketed. Soon Asher found himself juggling a packed schedule of auditions, rehearsals, and late-night drag performances. It was exhausting but deeply fulfilling work. One evening, as Asher was getting ready for a show in the dressing room he now shared with Aurora, she posed a question that gave him pause. Tell me something, honey. When you're all dolled up as Celeste, how does it make you feel? Asher considered this as he carefully applied his false eyelashes. Powerful, he said finally. Free, like I can be whoever I want to be without judgment or expectations. Aurora nodded sagely. And when you go back to being Asher, I feel more whole somehow. Like Celeste has helped me access parts of myself I was afraid to explore before. She makes me a better actor, a more empathetic person. He turned to face Aurora. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, darling. You've discovered the true magic of drag. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more authentically yourself. As Asher continued to embrace both his masculine and feminine sides, he found a new sense of balance in his life. His performances, both in and out of drag, took on new depths of emotion and vulnerability. Critics raved about his ability to fully inhabit every character he portrayed, marveling at his seemingly effortless transitions between genders. But it wasn't always smooth sailing. Asher faced his fair share of criticism and prejudice, particularly from more conservative theatergoers who didn't understand or approve of his foray into drag. There were moments of self-doubt when he questioned whether he was jeopardizing his serious acting career. In those moments, he leaned on the unwavering support of Aurora and his theater family. They reminded him that true art knows no boundaries, and that his unique perspective was something to be celebrated, not hidden away. A year after his drag debut, Asher found himself nominated for a prestigious theater award for his groundbreaking performance in a gender-bending production of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. As he stood on the red carpet in an exquisitely tailored blue suit, he felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to find Aurora, resplendent in a shimmering gold gown. Couldn't let my protégé face the wolves alone, she said with a wink. Asher's heart swelled with gratitude. I wouldn't be here without you, he said, squeezing her hand. As they posed for photos, Asher marveled at how far he'd come. From a nervous actor struggling to walk in heels to a confident performer embracing all facets of his identity, it had been quite a journey. When his name was called as the winner, Asher ascended the stage with grace and poise, accepting the award with heartfelt thanks to all who had supported him. But it was his closing words that brought the audience to their feet. To anyone out there struggling to find their place in this world, don't be afraid to explore all the different parts of yourself. True artistry knows no gender. Be bold, be authentic, and never stop pushing the boundaries of what's possible. As the applause washed over him, Asher caught Aurora's eye in the crowd. She blew him a kiss, her eyes shining with pride. In that moment, Asher knew that wherever his path might lead next, he would face it with courage, creativity, and an open heart. The following day, as Asher sat in his dressing room preparing for that evening's performance, he reflected on the whirlwind of the past year. The award sat on his vanity, a tangible reminder of how far he'd come. But more valuable than any accolade was the sense of inner peace he'd found. A knock at the door interrupted his reverie.
5 minutes to curtain, Mr. Evans, called the stage manager. Thank you, 5, Asher replied automatically. He took a deep breath, studying his reflection one last time. The face that looked back at him was his own, yet transformed. Subtle contouring accentuated his cheekbones. A touch of mascara emphasized his long lashes. It wasn't full drag, but a perfect melding of Asher and Celeste, just right for tonight's gender-fluid role. As he made his way to the wings, Asher's mind drifted back to that first awkward rehearsal so many months ago. How far he'd come since then, in so many ways. He'd discovered strengths he never knew he possessed, pushed past fears and insecurities, and emerged stronger and more authentic than ever before. The curtain rose, and Asher stepped into the spotlight. As he began to speak his first lines, he felt that familiar thrill of transformation wash over him. This was where he belonged, not confined to one rigid identity, but free to explore the entire spectrum of human expression. In that moment, Asher knew with absolute certainty that he would never stop pushing boundaries, never stop growing and evolving as both an artist and a person. The journey Aurora had set him on was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. As the play unfolded, Asher poured every ounce of himself into the performance. He moved fluidly between masculine and feminine energies, his voice and body language shifting seamlessly to embody each facet of his complex character. The audience was spellbound, utterly captivated by the raw emotion and vulnerability on display. During the curtain call, the theater erupted in a standing ovation that seemed to go on forever. Asher's castmates embraced him, their faces shining with pride and admiration. As he took his final bow, Asher's eyes sought out Aurora in her usual seat. She nodded at him, a knowing smile on her lips. Later, as they shared a quiet drink in Asher's dressing room, Aurora raised her glass in a toast. To new beginnings, endless possibilities, and the courage to be unapologetically yourself. Asher clinked his glass against hers, feeling a swell of emotion. I owe you so much, Aurora. You've changed my life in ways I never could have imagined. She waved away his words. Oh, honey, I just opened the door. You're the one who had the courage to walk through it. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, sipping their drinks. Finally, Asher spoke. You know, I've been thinking a lot about what's next, about how I can use everything I've learned to make a real difference. Aurora leaned forward, intrigued. Do tell, darling. Well,
Asher began, his eyes lighting up with excitement. I've been talking to the theater board about starting a program for young actors, a sort of masterclass in gender expression and character embodiment, using techniques from drag and traditional theater to help performers break free from limiting stereotypes and really explore the full range of human emotion. Aurora clapped her hands in delight. Oh, I love it! What a fabulous idea! Asher grinned. I was hoping you might be interested in helping out as a guest instructor from time to time. Darling, I thought you'd never ask. Aurora replied with a wink. I'd be honored. As they continued to chat and plan, Asher felt a sense of purpose settling over him. He'd found his calling, not just as an actor or a drag performer, but as a mentor and guide for others on their own journeys of self-discovery. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would be challenges and setbacks, moments of doubt and fear. But Asher knew he had the strength and resilience to face whatever came his way. And he had a supportive community behind him, cheering him on every step of the way. As the night wore on and their glasses emptied, Asher and Aurora found themselves reminiscing about that first fateful meeting at the club. How nervous and unsure Asher had been, how patient and encouraging Aurora had been. "Did you ever imagine we'd end up here?" Asher asked, gesturing to encompass everything: the award, the rave reviews, the plans for the future. Aurora smiled softly. "I had a feeling about you from the start, honey. There was a spark there, just waiting to be ignited. I'm just glad I got to be there to see it catch fire." Asher reached out and squeezed her hand.
"Thank you," he said simply, "for everything."
As they said their goodbyes and Asher began to remove his stage makeup, he caught sight of himself in the mirror once more. The face that looked back at him was older, wiser, more confident than the Asher of a year ago. But more than that, it was a face full of hope and excitement for the future. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever new roles he might take on, Asher knew he was ready to face them head on. With the lessons of the past year etched into his heart and the support of his chosen family behind him, there was nothing he couldn't accomplish. As he turned off the dressing room lights and stepped out into the cool night air, Asher took a deep breath. The city stretched out before him, full of endless possibilities. He smiled to himself, squared his shoulders, and set off towards home with a spring in his step. The journey wasn't over. In many ways, it was only just beginning. But Asher was ready for whatever came next. In heels or flats, in drag or out, he would face it all with grace, courage, and an open heart.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!